Continue with our study of Mareh Yaakov, and as with each year, despite the fact that we've had a little bit of a hiatus, we're going to talk about something from Parshat Lech Lecha. We've since the last time we convened, read both Breshit, Noach, and Lech Lecha. So I'm actually going to give you something that's both in Breshit and in Noach, but we're not going to touch on Lech Lecha in this introduction. When we talk about Noach, we see in the first sentence about Noach that his name is mentioned 3 times. Eila told us Noach ish tzadik teimim haya b'dorotav et Elokim hithalech Noach. In the same sentence we have his name appearing 3. So there seems to be some connection between Noach and the number 3. And whenever you want to learn something about somebody, you look at the first time that he's mentioned, and the first time that Noach is mentioned is when he's born. His name is Noach. This is the one who's going to give us consolation. So we're also going to discuss some of the Rashis and some of the Balaturim that talk about these sentences. So when we're introduced with Noach, we have this really weird phrase. Noach ish tzaddik. Noach was a righteous person. Tamim, he was complete. Haya b'dorotav. He was complete in his generation. What's b'dorotav? What does that mean? So Rashi says that some people would consider that if he were in another generation, he would have been even greater. And some people say that he was a good person, but only in his generation. Had he been in another generation and compared to somebody else, he wouldn't have met the standard. So if you put him in the generation of Abraham, he would not have been somebody who was so exemplary. And we see later on examples of where Noach seems to fall down. We see that Noach waits 7 days before going into the ark, and he goes into the ark mipnei mehababul. He didn't go into the ark because God told him to go. He told him because the water with the flood was there. So that seems to speak to Noach's discredit, to say that he wasn't such a great person. We see that the Teva, the ark, had a window, and we discuss in the Meforshim whether the window was something that he could see through, because if again he was completely righteous, then he would have the proper fortitude to see divine judgment and see it clearly and understand it for all it's worth. And on the other hand, if he wasn't so righteous, then this window that he had would let in light, but wouldn't let him see through. So again, we don't answer the question there. Similarly, when we have Noach getting out after the end of the flood and planting a vineyard, we again see Noach trying to take the sort of the most elevated thing, and then falling down, and then getting instead of so the Midrash tells us that Noach planted the vineyard on the same day that it grew, that he harvested the grapes, that he crushed them into wine. All of that happened on the same day. So there was a great amount of potential. Noach harnessed the potential, and what did he do? He drank it. He drank alone. He didn't share the special essence of wine, is that it can elevate a ceremony or something when you share it with others. But if you drink by yourself, then you're susceptible to all the bad things that wine can do, and there's no potential for it to do good. So Noach starts as ish tzadik tamim haya, and ends Noach vayachal Noach ish adamah. Becomes a man of the ground. He becomes something who's worth less than he was before. And Moshe begins as a shepherd, and he ends up as ish Elohim. He begins as literally somebody connected to the ground, and ends up as somebody who has the highest description of himself. So Noach seems to fall down on all accounts. So when we look at the word Tamim Haya B'dorotav, he was Haya, Hey, Yud, Hey. when we take the gematria, the mathematics of 5 and 10 and 5 is 20. So there were 20 generations from Adam until Abraham. Noah seems to have been greater than 20 generations, Balaturim tells us. But once we get to Abraham, the 21st generation, the 20th generation, he does not exceed him anymore. So again, this seems to say that Noah is somebody who falls down. So, where do we see this in the notes? We see this in the notes in that first part in Breshit when Noah is introduced. Zeh Yenachamenu. This is the one who's going to give us comfort. And here we need to know a little bit about our notes. The word Zeh has two notes on it. It has a Tlisha Gdola and it has a Gershayim. Tlisha Gdola, its place is always at the beginning of the word, even if another syllable is the one that's accented. So if you've got another syllable that's accented towards the end of the word, you'll actually write a second Tlisha Gdola on that other syllable. So you'll sometimes see two of them. Because this is a one-syllable word, there's no ability to put two of them there. So we only write one. Gershayim goes on the accented syllable. Because the Tlisha Gdola is a higher level melech, is a higher level note that takes prominence, it goes first and it always sits at the beginning of the word, but in fact, it's pronounced second. So even though this is the way that it's written in all the texts, the way that you cantillate this, the way that you sing this, is you sing the Gershayim first, and then you sing the Tlisha Gdola afterwards. So this is the way that it's written, but that's the way that it's sung, and it's just because of the peculiarity of these two notes. So I'm going to put Noah in the little box in the middle, and this is the way that it's written. Coming from before up until this point, you then highlight Noah, and he's as good as everything that was before him. So where do we have Noah? We have Noah with everything that's before him. He's greater than that. And everything from him, from his generation and backwards, he's greater than that. So he's 20 generations. He's the greatest. That meets with the definition of what we have Haya. But what does Noah end up as? He ends up with everything before him. He's not as good as that. Everything after him, he's not as good as that. Noah just sits alone in his own generation. So in fact, the way that we pronounce it, Noah is sitting there alone and not achieving. So even though we write it, he has the potential to have been the greatest thing. He ends up just being something that's small and only for his own generation.
Interesting.
And the transposition and the way that we pronounce, so we see his potential and we see his reality in the way that we pronounce it. So that was Zeh and Achamenu and Noach and 3 and lots of fun Noach stuff. We're going to pause for a minute and we're going to find our page.